Gordon, are you sure you don't want Molly or one of your children here with you? Dr. Bartle had been my primary care physician for 15 years. I knew from his soft tone and hesitant demeanor that this wasn't a permanent flu or anything like that. I had been thin for over a month and was experiencing constant stomach pains and nausea. The kids were out of the house and successfully pursuing their careers, and Molly was out of town helping her mother deal with her recently deceased grandfather's inheritance. I took a deep breath. No, it's okay. Just tell me. It's bad, Gordon. He sighed and sat up. Pancreatic cancer. I'm so sorry, my friend. I'll be with you every step of the way, but I have some referrals for you to palliative care specialists. People I know and trust. Cancer? No, that's crazy. It was a virus or something. I just felt broken. Not whatever it is that people with cancer feel. It wasn't a big deal. I just needed vitamins or something. It couldn't be cancer. Maybe, can we take another look? Maybe it was a mistake. I don't feel that bad, do I? I hated the way my voice shook. Gordon, I wish it wasn't. You can get a second opinion if you want, but the result will be the same. It can be cured? I'm afraid not. Not in the way you're thinking of. We can make your life easier, but the survival rates are not encouraging. And for how long? Maybe 6 months. Can I go to my room for a minute? Sure. I'll come check on you in about 5 minutes. I'll never see my grandchildren. I won't grow old with Molly by my side. We'll never go on all those adventures we planned for when I retire. I wanted to cry. I tried to cry, but there were no tears. One way or another, there had to be something else. I didn't know what exactly there had to be more of, but it was strange. When you find out you won't live to see the end of the year, it should be more meaningful, accompanied by more ceremonies. My world was ending, and I could still hear the noise of cars outside and the music from the speakers. Staring at the wall, I waited for the doctor to return. A knock sounded, then he walked in. Gordon, I can get you an appointment with a colleague this afternoon. She's a therapist and can help you sort this out. No, thank you. Maybe tomorrow or the day after. I need to be alone. What am I going to tell Molly? She should be home tonight. Just be honest with her. She needs to know. I couldn't go home. It was impossible to concentrate, and I couldn't let Molly see me like this. Just outside of town was the Embassy Suites Hotel. I felt incredibly tired and wanted to sleep, rest, and just sleep. Pulling into the parking lot, I saw my wife's Jaguar with the distinctive Molly Scat license plate. I hadn't realized before that it could be read as Molly Scat. Parked next to it was an Audi with the license plate Spindock. I recognized that car. It belonged to Arnold Frost, a chiropractor who had been Molly's college sweetheart. They'd been engaged before I'd even met her, and he'd moved back to town about a year ago. I was numb. There was no heartache or anguish. It was just all too much. Blinking slowly, I couldn't take my eyes off his license plate. I guess that explained why we'd cooled off in the bedroom over the last 6 months or so and why she had to spend so much time with her mother. Molly's attraction to me had dropped 3 times in the last 5 years, then increased again in a few months. Who was before Frost? I hoped I was wrong, that maybe they'd just met for lunch, but in my gut I knew I was fooling myself. I parked far enough away that I could see their cars but not be seen. The woman I had loved for more than half my life came out of the side entrance, kissed the man who had broken my heart, got in her car, and drove away. There was something about it that my brain couldn't understand, some symbol I was too tired to decipher. My sanctuary, my love. My wife had just destroyed me and left. I leaned back in my chair and lay down. A few hours later, the doctor gave me a death sentence, and my wife emotionally hastened my death by 6 months. Shivering, I woke up. Several hours had passed and I was covered in cold, clammy sweat. It was dark outside, and my back was stiff from sleeping in the car. It took me a few minutes to get my bearings, and then I went inside and got a room for the night. A repeated knock onto the door woke me up, and I stumbled in and let the guy who was servicing my room in. I never managed to get back to sleep. After eating, I called my daughter, Amber. I needed to hear her voice. It was pathetic, but I needed to talk to someone who I was sure loved me, and it didn't matter what we talked about. We talked on the phone for 45 minutes, talking about everything and nothing. When I was about to say goodbye, she stopped. Daddy, is everything okay? You say, I don't know, just, are you okay? I remembered Girl Scout projects, soccer games, and father-daughter dances. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling as we talked, and I was overcome again by the realization that there would be no miniature Amber for me to spoil. No granddaughter to take to Disney or watch her grow up. Trying to keep my voice normal, I replied, Of course, sweetie. It's okay. I'll call you in a few days, okay? We hung up, and I was about to call my son, but I couldn't find the energy. Still dressed, I curled up and fell asleep. I woke up around 10 p.m., drank the water that came with my lunch, and texted Molly. I had to leave town. Macmillan is threatening to close his business. Dead zone for cell phones, no cell phone reception. I'll be back in a few days. I checked on her just to be sure. She hadn't called or texted me in the 4 hours I was supposed to be home. I could be dead in a ditch if she didn't care. I watched a little ESPN and went back to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. For the first time in a long time, I woke up rested and hungry. I ordered scrambled eggs, bacon, pancakes, and orange juice, went to my car, and got my laptop out. While I ate, I started making lists. I owned Riley's ally. My wife's name didn't appear anywhere, and she held no position or stake in the company. The business was started by my grandfather, run by my mother. And when my parents were killed by a drunk driver 10 years ago, I took her place. Sheila Riley, my mother, spearheaded the merger of Riley Accounting Services with Allied Financial, our largest competitor. Shortly thereafter, Molly became more materialistic. It happened slowly at first. We needed a house in a better school district. That made sense, but we didn't need shaped topiaries, faux chandeliers, or couches you couldn't sit on. We needed a bigger car to drive the kids to and from class. It didn't have to be a Range Rover. Eventually, the pretense stopped. Molly wanted all the perks in life and assumed we could afford them. It didn't embarrass anyone. Not me, not the kids. In fact, we could afford almost everything. And although she was fixated on status symbols, she was still the same loving woman we had always known. We let her have her status symbols while we ourselves continued to live the way we had always lived. For most of the children's lives, she was the perfect mother. She gave up a promising career to stay at home. And if sacrifices were required, Molly and I made them. We went without new clothes for a few extra months so the kids would always be well-dressed. We gave up vacations so the kids could travel to school. There was not a single complaint on her lips. These were our children, and that's what you do. As our wealth grew, so did her sense of self-worth and importance. In the last few years, it was as if she felt entitled to make up for the sacrifices we had made in the past. Unfortunately, it wasn't just about finances. In the last few years, she began to avoid us, spending more and more time alone and getting annoyed when anyone noticed she was missing family events or seemed uninterested. The children were left to their own devices and fought dragons in their own areas. Molly thwarted all attempts to get together on long weekends and vacations. I even offered to fly with the kids a few times, but she tried to convince me to say no at least half the time. I was buying them plane tickets anyway, and the little time she did carve out for her family, she spent reluctantly. I wondered what she'd been doing all this time, but it all became clear when I pulled into the parking lot. After finishing half a glass of juice, I started typing. Get a third-party valuation of the company, sell the house. Cash out everything the value. Get rid of the money, leave her nothing. Hospice for the indigent? Prepare the children, cut her out of my life, into my life. Well, that was a joke, wasn't it? I picked up the phone and made my first call of the day. Craig, Gordon here. How are you doing? Good. How are you doing yourself? Have you gotten rid of that bug yet? Yeah, I went to the doctor yesterday. Listen, I need 2 favors. I need a recommendation from a firm that can assess the value of the company, and I need you to keep this to yourself. Scott Billings sold his brokerage firm a few years ago. Do you keep in touch with him? Also with the people he used? Craig and I were golf buddies for almost 20 years. We both worked in the financial sector, and our relationship was both personal and professional. Scott was a mutual friend of ours. He went through a difficult breakup and divorce, and his ex-wife tried to commit suicide. She ended up moving to California, and he left right after he ruined her career. I hear he's back in town. Maybe he and Craig have been in touch. Either way, Craig would find me someone good by the end of the day. Then I called my doctor back. I needed to know exactly what would happen to me when I lost the ability to function, and how best to prepare myself to meet the end alone. He gave me the names and phone numbers of the specialists he recommended, but insisted I make an appointment myself. That's very kind, Doc, but I can handle it. You don't know my schedule, and... Gordon, listen to me. Your schedule doesn't matter anymore. It's your priority now. If I have to take time off and drive you or have Eileen drive you, I'll do it. Eileen was his wife. They were friends who had been to this house many times. It didn't bother me that this man was trying so hard for me while my wife hadn't bothered to call, text, or email in almost 24 hours. Okay, thank you. That means a lot. I had to pause for a moment before continuing. I don't need a therapist, but please contact me about others. I then called my secretary. Carla, I'll be out of the office for a week or so. You know who to contact. The auditors are coming in the next couple days to check things out. Everything is in order. I'll contact you tomorrow with their names and other information. You can reach me on my cell phone. Call me if you have any problems. You can't run a business like mine and not have security on staff. Most of our internal employees who kept an eye on order were pencil pushers rather than the cool Sam Spade types. I reached out to our outside company. They filled in the gaps that our staff couldn't handle. They had several divisions. They needed someone to handle the usual adultery cases. It wasn't for me. I didn't need to create a case. Divorcing someone when you're going to die in 6 months would be a ridiculous undertaking. I needed proof for the kids so I wouldn't be made out to be the villain. The strange energy I was filled with prompted me to meet with representatives of the firm in person. I had the CEO's personal number and could have handled everything over the phone, but I was driven by some strange drive and nervousness. As I drove, I realized that with Molly in my hands, I had something I could influence and shape. As I approached the receptionist's desk, I pulled out my business card and held it out to the woman. Gordon Cordell, to see Avery Beastle. Do you have an appointment? I shook my head. I'm afraid not. I hope he can spare me 5 minutes. Please have a seat, Mr. Cordell. I'll get him on the phone. 10 minutes later, Avery himself came down and led me into a well-furnished meeting room. It's a pleasure, Gordon. What can we do for you? Not a pleasure for me, I'm afraid. I need you to provide me with as much information as you can about how my wife is abusing me. I need proof of what she is doing now, and information on who she was with before her current boyfriend. He sat stunned. I took a strange pleasure in the fact that he felt uncomfortable. It was clearly the last thing he'd expected. Well, of course. I'm sorry to hear of your difficulties. I signed papers that seemed like a whole tree, giving them authorization for everything except the colonoscopy. The cars were put in my name, as was the house. They would both be hooked up. Her finances would be looked into, as would this scammer's, as far as it would be legal. Avery hinted that they had connections to most of the hotels in the area and could apply a little pressure to get copies of the records. Avery, I need that information as soon as possible. Don't spare any money, okay? If you need to get more people involved, do it. All right, Gordon. We'll make it a priority. I hope you're wrong. I'm not wrong. He only pursed his lips and nodded at me. Anyway, I was out of there in an hour. Craig called me back while I was still in the parking lot of the Avery. Gordon, I have someone for you to evaluate. Marquette Financial Services. I've talked to Maddie Albright. She's the CEO, in name only. And no, she's not related to Madeline Albright. Can you meet with her at 3 o'clock? Yeah, sure. Are they nice? The very best. They are near 25th and 96th Streets. I'll send you the address. Thanks, Craig. I owe you one. Mrs. Albright radiated professionalism. We sat and talked for about 45 minutes and I signed another stack of papers. She said they would start evaluating my company the next day. She had pictures of her family on her desk. Her husband was apparently a doctor and they had 2 children. I envied their future. Hopefully it would be longer than mine. I insisted that I needed speed, and she said that if I preferred speed over quality, I should find someone else to do the evaluation. In hindsight, I can say that was a great response. It had been a productive day and I drove back to the hotel to relax and maybe take a nap. On the way, I thought about how much was depending on me and how good it was that I had something concrete to contend with. My death was coming. It seemed inevitable. And there was no plan, no strategy, no means to keep the Grim Reaper from coming. I had absolutely no control over my death, but with Molly? Yes, I could control her any way I wanted. Picking up the phone, I leaned back against the headboard, dialed the number, and waited for the automated voice. Thank you for calling the PFC James Dunn Veterans Clinic. If this is an emergency, please hang up and call 911. We are located at 477-6 Eagle Ridge Circle in Pueblo. If you know your caller's 4-digit extension number, please enter it now. If not, please wait for an operator. After entering the number, I waited for her to pick up. Dr. Gruel's office, may I help you? Hi, Marlene. This is Gordon. Is he in? A patient just came out. Give me a minute to see if he's available, Mr. Cordell. Gordon's fine, Mar. She'd already stopped me. I'd talked to this woman twice a week for years, and I was still Mr. Cordell. Sighing, I began to wait. My friend's voice came on the line. Gordon, what can I do for you? I, Ecom, need help. Your help. I'll clear my schedule. Would you like to come over tonight? No, Look, why don't we just go to dinner and then we'll talk about it? Sure. Chilla Verde and beer? Betty's Bar and Grill at 7? That'll do. Thanks, Ecom. Gordon, if you need me this afternoon, I'll reschedule. No, my friend, 7 is fine, thank you. He wasn't hard to spot when he walked in. There weren't many Sikhs in Pueblo. I waved him over, and he came over and sat across from me. Almost immediately, a waitress came over with chips, salsa, and 2 glasses of water. Do you need some time or are you ready to order? I smiled to myself. Yes, I needed some time. Maybe more like 6 months? I would have settled for a few years, but that wasn't on the menu. She was a pretty girl, probably in college. Do you have any beers from Avery Brewing Company? She nodded. Great. I'll take Uncle Jacob's stout and my friend will take O'Doul's. We'll need 2 bowls of chile verde, 1 vegetarian, and garlic bread. Thank you. She took our order and left. Ecom looked at me, rested his hands on his chin, and squinted his eyes. Ordering for me? How romantic. Shut up. You order the same thing every time. We were quiet for a minute, and I looked around the restaurant. There was definitely a young atmosphere here, and I was pretty sure we were the 2 oldest men here. Ecom must have noticed something when I looked at the couples with families. He paused for a moment and just watched me. Talk to me, Gordon. What's going on? You know how it is when someone gets a flat tire, is late for a meeting, and then spills coffee on their shirt? They come home with some version of what a day I've had. Well, I'm pretty sure my day yesterday is in the Hall of Fame category. Okay, what happened? I told him. About the cancer, about what I'd learned about Molly, about the weird ennui and emotional exhaustion and everything else I could remember. Then I explained that I woke up with a sense of purpose that I hadn't remembered in months. I knew he wouldn't be happy with my decision, but I was going to destroy her. There was some kind of synergy to it. I was going to die, and Molly was going to regret her death. To say I'm sorry sounds pathetic, doesn't it, Gordon? But it is. You don't deserve it. Let's just talk tonight, okay? As friends. But I want you to come over on Saturday so we can start planning something. Yeah, sure, thanks. Dr. Ecom Gruel was a psychiatrist who worked at the Veterans Hospital and treated fellow service members. We met during the service. There weren't many of us from Pueblo, and we became fast friends. He was a dozen years older than me, but that never interfered with our friendship. I was probably one of the few people who knew he had a Bronze Star. There's going to be some kind of fair in the parking lot on Saturday. Just stop by there and have someone behind the counter call me. Sounds good. We ate, drank, talked about our kids, and he tried to distract me for a few hours. When are you coming back? Her first attempt at communication in almost 2 days. Bitch. She probably wanted to know how free her schedule was so she could continue to have fun with the chiropractor. I ignored the message and called my office instead. Carla, I have a file on my computer called CBO. I need you to email its contents to me. Okay, you'll have it in 10 minutes. Anything else? No. Is everything okay in there? Yes, sir. Your department heads are doing a great job. Everything is running smoothly. Good. Call me if you need to. The folder was a compilation of buyout offers I'd received over the years. It contained company biographies and general reviews I had done. After looking through the folder for an hour or so, I did a little digging online to make sure the information about the companies was still current. I drafted a letter letting them know I was interested in receiving proposals and inviting a third party to do an evaluation. After customizing each letter, I sent them Maddie Albright's company information so they could do their due diligence. Then I called my doctor back. His receptionist put me on hold, and after a few minutes, he picked up the phone. Gordon, I sent you the information on palliative care specialists. Did you receive it? Got it, thank you. That's a different matter altogether. Look, under no circumstances should Molly know anything about my condition. I'm not kidding about that. We're friends, Jim. And I value that friendship, but there's no way out. I'm telling you as a patient, I expect complete confidentiality. If I need to get an attorney involved, I'll do it. Look, your wishes will be honored, but I have to tell you that I think you're making a huge mistake. It's my mistake, Doc. I appreciate the referral. By the time Saturday came around, I had liquidated most of my assets. We still had cars, a business, a house, and an apartment in Honolulu. I had a huge chunk of cash and we hadn't even started on any major purchases yet. I texted Molly and told her I'd be back on Wednesday. She replied with a simple, okay. How sweet. This was the same loving wife I had managed to hate over the past week. After changing into casual clothes, I drove to the military clinic to Ecom's. Half of the parking lot was occupied by some sort of festival for veterans, and I looked around before heading to my appointment. There was live music, speakers from companies and charities that provide services to veterans, and vendors handing out free food to those who had served. When I saw the sign for Mookie's House of Tacos, I wondered where the missing E was and why they were using an extra apostrophe. All the vendors had tip jars for non-veteran customers, and I tipped big for a mango lassi at the Samosa Diner. Listening to something called the Poplin Family Jug Band, I watched Mookie at work. He had a huge sign announcing that he didn't sell Dr. Pepper and a smaller sign listing his tacos and salsa. Every once in a while, he hugged those who approached and handed them a brown paper bag. These are veterans. He supplies them with weed. He says it's some super strain, but almost every vendor in Colorado has been saying the same thing since 2012. But Mookie is the real deal. He gives them weed for free. He's partial to vets and old people. You're a friend of Dr. Gruel's, right? Looking at the guard, I held out my hand and we shook it. Yes, Gordon. Nice to meet you. Try the tacos, Gordon. They're surprisingly good. After buying 6 of them, I let one of the Mookie's employees convince me to buy some of their hemp salsa. I bought 2 cans of red and 2 cans of tomatillo. When he looked back, I gave Mookie's a thumbs up and put 200 in the tip jar. I'd have to get rid of millions. And I might as well start with someone who takes care of veterans and old people. 2 chicken and 1 carnitas for me, and 2 sofritas and 1 bean for Eckham. I was afraid he would have to ventilate his office if we were delayed. Taking 2 waters for a $10 tip each, I headed toward the building. Halfway there, someone called my name. Gordon. Turning around, I saw Scott Billings jogging in my direction. Shifting the bags into my left hand, I held out my right. He looked good. I'd heard rumors that he'd fallen apart after his divorce and had lost a lot of weight. Presumably he was traveling, trying to find a way out of a mental crisis. I suddenly took a sudden liking to him. Hey Scott, it's good to see you. Are you back in town already or just visiting? Yeah, I'm back. Bought a new apartment and everything. Thought it was about time. My niece and nephew are growing up. I wanted to be with them for a while until they go off to college, you know? What about you? What do you do? I'm selling the company. Maybe we can have lunch sometime and you can tell me what you've learned. Yeah, sure. He handed me his business card. Give me a call. If I have plans, I'll clear my schedule. Are you here for the fair? No, a friend of mine works here. Just stopped by to say hello. And you are? Yeah, sort of. Have you ever met Liz Armaguido, the lawyer? We're sort of dating. Her niece is Shannon Poplin, of the Poplin Family Jug Band. Shannon and her dad do a lot of benefit concerts, and we're here to support them. I won't stop you from chatting with your friend, but it was good to see you. Give me a call. Sure. It was good to see you too. Seeing Scott reminded me of Nancy, his ex, former LPGA star. I hadn't thought of her in years and decided to Google her when I got back to the hotel. Akam seemed happy to see me, but part of that might have been due to the fact that I had brought food. We talked for 2 hours and touched on such deep topics that I would have had a hard time discussing with anyone else. So, Gordon, it's time to cut to the chase. For most of your marriage, Molly has been a wonderful wife and mother, right? Now is the time in your life when you need her most. Why not talk to her? Give her the opportunity to change course and be with you in the time you have left. If she takes this opportunity, you win. She will come back to reality, realize what she has been doing, and how it affects the people she loves. And you will have a woman you love who will be with you for the rest of your life. If she says no, you will have lost nothing. You'll be back in the position you're in now. I stared at the floor for a full minute, then picked up the water bottle and took a sip. That's not going to happen. I just can't. The thought of going to bed and knowing that the next day I'll be with the woman who did this to me and our children, and she's with me now because I'm dying? No, I can't do that. I sighed and looked him in the eye. I'm going to burn everything to the ground and let her live in the smoldering ruins of what was once our life. Leaning back in his chair, he looked me in the eye. Poetic wording, I think. Silly, but poetic. So you plan to find strength in your hatred? Do you really think that's a healthy approach? Smiling, I replied. How healthy does it have to be? We don't have to worry about long-term consequences, do we? I'll be in my grave in 6 months. My friend, forget about reconciliation for now. You don't need to spend time with her. I can talk to you about coping methods. I can warn you about what's in store for you emotionally. I can be there for you as a friend. But the best thing I can do for you is to advise you to find peace. Talk to her. Let her know what is going on and let her know that you are aware of what she has been doing. Lay it all out and see how she reacts. I think we both knew I was going to ignore that suggestion. I appreciate your advice, Ecom. But what about the children? How do I prepare them? We talked until dark, and by the time I got back to the hotel, I was exhausted. I ordered 2 bottles of water and 2 beers for the room and made the call I had been dreading. Hey, William, it's Dad. He laughed. Even though I don't recognize your voice, your name comes up on the phone. What's up, Dad? Missing you, you and your sister. Listen, if I send you a ticket, can you fly down and meet me at your sister's next weekend? I need to talk to you. Yeah, sure. I don't think I have anything going on. Is everything okay? Sure. Everything's fine. Daddy, it doesn't look like everything's okay. What aren't you telling me? I need to talk to you both about some business matters. I just have a lot on my mind. I'll send you the ticket information, okay? Yeah, sure. Dad, I love you. You can call and talk whenever you want, you know that, right? I know, I love you too. You and your sister are the best thing in my life. Good night, William. Hanging up the phone, I lay back down again and stared at the ceiling. He was a great kid. At least once a week I thought William was going to break his neck. Even as a kid, he rode his bike like a maniac. Then he got into skateboarding, and I used to take him to skate parks and make him wear a helmet and face shields. I would have preferred to wrap his entire body in industrial bubble wrap, but I took what I could get. He was a man now. After another 20 minutes of self-pity, I decided to make some videos offering him any advice he could replicate at critical moments in his life. How to tell if a woman is the one. Actually, any advice I could give in this area would be suspect. How to overcome the first hurdles in marriage. What to do about the panic when you find out you're going to be a father. My kids and a few close friends were all I cared about. I had less than 6 months to do my best for them, and I was going to use that time wisely. I would consider an irrevocable trust for the kids that Molly couldn't touch. If that proved unfeasible, I would simply buy as much gold as I could and send it to them in 3 years. What can Molly do if her lawyer sends me threatening letters? If Sharon doesn't carry mail, the postal service won't be able to get them to where I'll be. Screw her. Maybe I was just deluded, but I thought I had so much anger built up inside me that no harm would come to me. The investigators sent me daily photo summaries. Up until now, I had ignored them, but here I opened the email and then the attachments. Anger wasn't helping. The written summaries were dry and clinical. The pictures felt like they were digging into my soul. There was no bravado or unnecessary anger in them. There was only a sense of incalculable loss. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears rolling down my cheeks. After stripping down to my underwear, I climbed under the covers and fell soundly asleep. The morning didn't bring me as much energy as the previous few days, but I had a purpose, and that spurred me on. Sitting in front of my laptop, I went through 20 or 30 options before I came to something I was happy with. Cuddles. Nothing free gives so much to another person. Give one today. It had to be something unabashedly silly and cute. I wasn't a creative person, but it seemed fitting. The University of Colorado supposedly had a good art program. Parking on campus, I asked a few students where the graphic artists classes were and headed that way. Stopping at each bulletin board, I found 7 ads from students looking for freelance work. Some of them had little tabs to tear off at the bottom of the sheet with email addresses and phone numbers. But I just took a picture of each ad with my phone. Satisfied that I had gotten the job done so quickly, I walked into the sandwich store on campus. The line was long, but moved quickly. After approaching the cashier and not fully reading the menu, I asked the young man, "Do you have the turkey and avocado wrap?" "Of course we do. With bacon and tomato?" "Yes, of course. With bacon and tofu." Tearing my gaze away from the pictures and menus on the signs above his head, I looked up at him and smiled. "I'll take the real thing and add more bacon, okay? And mayonnaise. Lots of mayo." "Your funeral, man." I even laughed. "That's not what's going to kill me, son." Grabbing the juice for the wrap, I paid him off, put a 20 in the tip jar, and went to find a bench. While I ate, I composed my letter, looked at pictures for different ad addresses, and sent it off. "Hola, compadres. I would like to hire you for an art project. Please let me know your rates. If the price is reasonable, you are hired. I don't need to show samples. If I like your work, you will get a second order within a week. I need a collage of people hugging. I need to show you all the options. Older people hugging younger people. Disabled people hugging athletes. Bikers and hippies. Men and men, women and men, women and women. Go crazy. It has to be useful and scalable. This is going to be a billboard. Here's the text that should be at the center. Hugs. Nothing free gives so much to another person. Give it as a gift today." By the time I got to the ad agency renting the billboard space in my desired neighborhood, I had price offers from 5 out of 7. I agreed to the price of each offer. I had to haggle a bit, but I got 3 of the 4 billboards I needed. By the time I finished the meeting, the last 2 offers came in. I accepted both offers. A quick turnaround was required, and the next day, I received 6 samples for approval. I approved them all and paid them 50% more than they asked for. What the hell? They were college students and I needed to get rid of the money. The ones I liked best called their creators back and ordered another picture. This one was a little different. 2 days later, I sat in the parking lot eating a chocolate chip cookie and washing it down with cold milk. I was overcome with nostalgia for the foods I had enjoyed as a child, and there wasn't much point in caring too much about my diet. They came around pretty quickly. My ad appeared on a billboard less than 2 hours later. They had a team of 4 people and a supervisor. When they were done, I got out of the car and walked up to one of them. "Hey, you guys did it pretty fast. I always thought installing a thing like this was a big project." The short, wiry man looked me over from head to toe before answering. "No, it's not a big deal. They come in strips. Keep them straight and the monkey will do just fine." "I think you're being modest. Look, I'd like to ask you some questions about how this works. I'll give you $500 for your time." When we finished talking and he called some of the people he was working with, we made a deal. $2,000 per person and $2,500 for myself, and I had a team to post whatever I wanted. The graphics company gave me 24 hours to prepare, if I was willing to pay extra. I did. My loving wife texted me twice, letting me know she was home and asked where I was. I did not respond. If she called the kids and they called me, I would have to explain over the phone what I wanted to explain in person. I was counting on her indifference. 48 hours later, the new billboard was installed. We worked through the night. Okay, they got the job done, and I gleefully watched them. We were 3 blocks from his office. The new billboard had a picture of a chiropractor kissing my wife. Below the photo was a line of text. "Dr. Arnold Frost is my wife's chiropractor. He treats more than just her back." The site had been created and presumably could not be traced back to me. I didn't care. The whole dying thing was very freeing. It took longer than I expected, but after lunch I got a call. "Mr. Cordell, this is Fred Banks from Sunrise Advertising. There's been an incident with one of your billboards." Feigning indignation, I demanded to know what he was going to do. He assured me that the new image would be removed by that evening, and my original image would be restored. 2 days later, this process was repeated on my other billboard, which was 2 blocks from his office. They were very apologetic about it. Eventually, they apparently realized that the woman was my wife and terminated the contract after replacing the 3rd billboard. My secretary called and said she had gotten a call from the law firm looking for me. Apparently, Dr. Frost had some kind of social problem. I guess he wanted to sue me or something. It was all over social media, and the local news covered the story repeatedly. Website traffic was at an all-time high. Molly called and wrote repeatedly. How wonderful it was to have her undivided attention again. The huge posh house in the best neighborhood with the best school that my wife needed to feel better about herself belonged to my parents. After buying a condo in Miami and another in San Francisco, they scaled back and bought a 3rd here in Pueblo. They sold me the house for next to nothing. Everything was in my name, and I took out a huge mortgage. It was supposed to take a month to do everything, but I had a month, no problems. My meeting with the kids was on Saturday, and on Friday I met Scott Billings for dinner. I was hoping to entice him into selling my company. We worked in the same field, and his advice could come in handy. He brought along a woman he was dating, which came as a surprise to me. When I stood up to shake his hand, he reached out and gave me a hug. That was another surprise. We had never been that close. Our relationship had always been reduced to meeting at professional events, charity dinners, the occasional poker game, and at the driving range where we chatted while practicing our strokes. "So, are you socializing with anyone, Gordon?" You mean selling?" He looked at Liz, the woman he was with, and then back at me. "No, you realize everyone knows, right? The billboards and everything? Are you seeing a counselor or something?" "Oh, yeah. I guess I should have thought about that. I've been kind of withdrawn lately." "No, I don't talk to anyone about it." "Well, actually, sort of, but not specifically about it." Giving me a sad smile, he continued. "Okay, you can think about it. Did you get a chance to meet Liz? Pueblo isn't such a big town, and we all go in the same circles." "No, not really. We may have met in passing once or twice. Liz Armaguido, right?" "Gordon Cordell. Nice to meet you." She had a firm handshake, and her reputation went before her. When she swam, sharks would get out of her way. She was a strong lawyer, and if I ever needed an assassin, I'd try to get her on my side. She smiled at me. Gordon, it looks like the chiropractor is out to get your head. There are rumors of ethics charges. His partners want him out of his holistic practice, and I'm sure patients are leaving in droves. He's going to try to sue you for everything you have. You've got to be kidding me. You put this together in 3 days? She continued. Everybody knows everybody in Pueblo. Look, you pay for dinner, and I'll count that as my fee. Let me shake some trees and see what sprinkles out of them. I'll work cheap. You'll get me for free, but you'll pay for my investigators or whoever else I have to hire. Deal? Liz, I know who you are and how much you should be paid. I'm a stranger. Why are you doing this for me? Losing her smile, she replied, the cards on the table. I had a chance to step in and help my brother-in-law, but I didn't. He ended up in deep shit, and I let other commitments hold me back. I've regretted it ever since. And you're not a stranger. You're Scott's friend, and that's good enough for me. Besides, Frost seems like a scumbag. By the end of the evening, I told them about my diagnosis. Liz's brother-in-law had an aunt who worked as a private nurse and licensed dietitian. She promised to give me her contact information. Neither of us discussed that by the end of my life I would likely need constant care. The next day, it took me a little over an hour to drive to my daughter's house. She had moved to the neighborhood last year, and I was glad to have her close by. When I arrived, William was already there. As I pulled up to the house, I sat in the car and stared at the house, gathering my strength and courage. The last thing I wanted to do was hurt my children, but I saw no way out. I had to tell them that I was dying and that my wife was cheating on me. Honestly, after finding out that Liz and Scott knew, I realized it was pretty obvious at that point and wondered if the kids knew. Amber only had to watch the local news to realize that her mother was a slut. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my laptop and got out of the car, determined to do everything I could to make Amber and William's lives as easy as possible. Amber met her brother at the airport, and they were both already waiting for her. Solemnly hugging them, I sat them down and began. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. No child should be involved in something like this. Amber took her hands from the table and placed them in her lap, leaning forward. Dad, what's going on? Okay, 2 things, one worse than the other. Your mother... Holy shit, I can't even say those words. If I could only shield you from that, I would. I paused for a moment. Your mother cheated on me. She's dating the guy she was with before we got together. He's a chiropractor and moved back to town about a year ago. I'm not sure if they believed me or didn't want to believe me, but I could see them contradicting each other. They wanted to support me and sympathize with me, but they still doubted me. Their doubts were dispelled when I showed them the text of the investigators' reports. Amber wanted to see the photos, but William adamantly refused. He watched his sister while she looked at the pictures, hoping to find something to hold on to, some small chance that this was all a big mistake. When she started crying, he realized everything. They both knew, and I wished like hell they didn't have to. I hugged Amber for a few minutes. She quickly pulled herself together. What are you going to do, Daddy? Does she know you know? Are you going to try to work things out? Are you leaning towards divorce? There will be no divorce. I think now would be a good time to bring up the second, I don't know, situations. I'm really sorry to dump all this on you like this. Okay, I'm not going to be here much longer. I'm dying. Cancer. I got about 6 months to live. I found out shortly before I found out about your mother. The same day, things went downhill fast. When they found out about Molly, they cried and were angry, but that paled in comparison to the news of the cancer. They had the same reaction I had. There must be a mistake somewhere. I must get a second opinion. There must be some kind of treatment and the other gamut of denial. Focusing on ECAM's advice, I spoke calmly and realized the authenticity of their reaction. They had many untenable suggestions, and I gently advised them to refrain from any discussion until they had time to digest the news. There were more tears, and William looked particularly upset. He didn't know how to speak when it came to emotions. He never knew how to. I assumed Amber would call and yell at her mother, but William would likely remain silent, internally going through his emotions and not discussing the situation with Molly. An hour or so later, he came out on the porch with a beer and stared off into the distance alone. We left him alone for a while. When he returned, I saw that he had been crying. William came over, hugged me, hugged his sister, and got another beer. In a way, he had lost both of his parents today. Look, I know this isn't much consolation, but I still have some time. Tonight, I want to take you two out to the best restaurant in Colorado Springs. Amber, can you find a place and make a reservation? If it's okay with you, I'll sleep in your guest room. I'll get up around 5 and we'll have dinner. Sure, Dad. There's fresh linens on the bed and an extra blanket in the closet. Great, thanks. If your mom calls, I'd appreciate it if you didn't mention I'm here. Oh, and you can check the local news channels. Go to their websites and type chiropractor and billboard into a search engine. Listening to their quiet voices, I quickly fell asleep. Announcement. Daddy, wake up, okay? I felt Amber's hand on my cheek and slowly opened my eyes. I was tired as hell. Clearing my head, I yawned and then half mumbled. Honey, my purses are on the bureau. Why don't we put off the restaurant until tomorrow? We'll order takeout, whatever you want, my treat. She looked like she was about to start crying again. Dad, it's 10:30. You've slept for over 7 hours and you're burning up all over. Can we take you to the hospital? Should we call someone? Removing her hand from my cheek, I kissed her palm. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm just tired. Really tired. I'll feel better tomorrow. Where's your brother? Raising her eyebrows, she looked past me. Turning over, I saw William sitting in a rocking chair watching me. He's been there for 4 hours. Are you sure the fevers aren't interfering? They come and go. It's all right. I'll just go to bed. We'll go out for a big breakfast and make a day of it. Okay. She leaned over and kissed my forehead. Amber started crying again. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetie. Soon I was asleep again. The vigor I had been feeling lately, the rush of energy and lust for life was gone. I woke up exhausted but determined not to show it in front of the kids. We went to the cafeteria for breakfast and I did 2 runs, but ate almost nothing. Although physically I felt worse, emotionally I felt much better. I had my kids, I was using them, and it bothered me. I felt like a ghoul feeding off of others. Their energy fueled me, but I could see what it was costing them. Grabbing my laptop and coffee, I walked out onto the porch of Amber's house. I decided I couldn't put it off any longer. It was time to deal with friends and distant relatives. Ever since I'd found out about Molly, I'd withdrawn and narrowed my interests. Unless it was about my business, my kids, or my relationship with her and Frost, I ignored them. Texts were deleted unread, emails were ignored, and phone calls went unanswered. When I opened my email client, I found I had 274 unread emails, and that was after the spam filter. All emails from Molly were immediately deleted. When I was about to delete her 23rd email, I instead clicked the options button and blocked her address. It was nice, but petty. I didn't mind the pettiness. Anything that was general enough, I got a response that I drafted and cut and pasted. It contained a brief description of what Molly was doing, a confirmation that yes, I had hard evidence, and my diagnosis. I explained that while their care was appreciated and that I loved them all, I needed to spend as much time as possible with Amber and William. I answered emails from close friends and people I truly cared about with specific questions. All of this took several hours. That night, the kids and I went out to the best restaurant in Colorado Springs. We had a great time, but sad pauses and quiet moments of reflection were inevitable. William flew home on Monday, and I stayed with Amber for a few more days. I looked for an apartment and checked it out online. I signed a 1-year lease and moved in the following weekend. Whatever Liz had done must have scared the hell out of Frost and his lawyers. They stopped serving me, and I never heard from them again. She introduced me to her brother-in-law's Aunt Beth, and I hired her within the hour. I felt comfortable with Beth. She was an older woman who had been a private nurse for decades. She knew what to expect, and I didn't have to worry about her preparation. Close to the 30-day deadline, I received a letter of intent to purchase the company and the mortgage was finalized. I began to recognize the flight attendants by name. Flights to William became weekly. He would give me a key to his apartment, I would stay a day or two, and the next week he would fly to Pueblo. I had lunch with Scott and Liz a few times and even went to a Poplin Family Jug Band concert with them. It was great, but I wouldn't go again. My days were filled with friends and a few cousins who flew in to see me. Everyone wanted to see me. They were actually saying goodbye to me. We all knew it, but no one said it. There were tears, shared memories, hugs, pats on the back, and assurances that they would look after Amber and William. I grew weaker and weaker and soon found myself on painkillers. I had 3 supports, my 2 children, and Ecom. I clung to them, and their doors were always open. Unlike them, my doors to Molly were always closed. I changed my phone number, made sure no one was following me, and my children refused to text her or give her my contact information. I continued to make payments on the new mortgage, but they stopped when I was brought down to earth. She was surviving, but barely. Her mother had money and sheltered her. Carla, my public relations assistant, informed me that Molly stopped by her house every day for 2 weeks and stalked her in the parking lot. I was afraid she would do to me what I had done to her, so I hired a private investigator. After seeing her at my favorite bookstore and 2 restaurants, I became concerned. She didn't notice me, but it couldn't go on like this forever. While the kids steadfastly refused to talk about Molly and what she was up to, Ecom had no such compulsions. Gordon, she's been in my office half a dozen times and twice at my house. If your goal was to punish her, then bravo. Goal accomplished. She's a wreck. I actually referred her to a coworker. I am gravely concerned about her health. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry. I know it sounds clinical, unemotional, I guess, but I'm serious. You shouldn't be dragged into this. I don't think I've thought this through. The kids were pretty much expected, but the fact that they haven't said anything to her about me isn't so bad. I doubt they even talk to her much. I didn't expect it to affect my friends. So you'll consider talking to her? Hell no. Really? Akam, my position hasn't changed a bit. His eyes narrowed and he leaned forward. Look, how about an ironclad guarantee for once? We could do it here in my office, and I could act as a buffer of sorts. That would allow you to calm down a bit and maybe take some of the pressure off William and Amber. It's pretty low of me to use them in this way, but it would really help your children if you could sort out the situation a bit. You've been married to Molly for a quarter century now, and whether you want it or not, she and the kids will still be here when you're gone. If it would help your kids if they had someone in their lives to love them when you're gone, wouldn't you want to consider that option? Wow, yeah, you're right, that was pretty low. Powerful, but low. Okay, I'll think about it for the kids. I smiled and shook my head. Using my kids, Ecam? Gee. He only smiled and shrugged. Even though I'd paid her up front for a year's maintenance, I wasn't going to use Beth until I had to. I clung to my independence and any semblance of normalcy with a desperation that sometimes scared me. Unfortunately, as the pain worsened and my dosages increased accordingly, I found it increasingly difficult to drive. My nurse became my driver. Beth drove me to La Fourchetta de Masi, where I was having dinner with my children. She dropped me off and then went shopping, most likely for her nephew's children. They were like grandchildren to her, and she talked about them incessantly. Among them was her teenage granddaughter Shannon, who Beth said was a brilliant violinist, and 2 little boys, one 4 years old and the other a baby. By the time I arrived, William and Amber were already seated at the table. We enjoyed a wonderful meal and chatted about their careers. By the time dessert arrived on the table, I was ready to bring up the subject of Ecom's problems. I want to ask you guys, and please be honest with me, does the fact that I am not in contact with your mother make things difficult for you? Amber set her fork aside and answered, No, not really. She calls once a week, but she knows I'll hang up on her if she tries to contact you. She still tries, but not often. Okay. We both sat and waited. When he finally looked up from his dessert and saw us looking at him, William took a sip of coffee and shrugged. It doesn't matter to me in the slightest. I haven't talked to her and I don't intend to. She can't be stalking me or pressuring me in any way. Is she still stalking you? Yes, I had to change parishes. She hasn't been to Mass in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. She was there this week. I was suddenly exhausted again, but more emotionally than physically. We were their parents. We were supposed to be easing their burden, not adding to it. I sighed. If I'm gone, will you two have a hard time finding a way to move on with her? Would it help if I contacted her? Once again, Amber was the first to answer. I don't think so, Dad. If Mom and I want to get back what we had, it's going to take time. A lot of time. It's definitely not going to happen in the next few months, no matter what you do. Moving his plate to the center of the table, William leaned toward her. I can't believe that selfish bitch is my mother, the one I grew up with. You've made it clear you don't want to see her, and she can't even give you that. You're dying, and she still wants it. Screw her. He pulled out his wallet, left enough money on the table to pay for our dinner plus tip, and walked out. We found him on the paving stones surrounding the small pond outside the restaurant. William just sat there looking at the water. Are you okay, son? Startled, he lifted his head. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just upset. She cut herself out of our lives completely, and now she wants to come back before time runs out? It's always about her. Beth came back for me, and I hugged the kids before getting in the car. Whether she drove or not, she was still my nurse. You look a little pale. Are you feeling okay? Physically? Not too bad. I'm sorry, Gordon. I wish things were easier. Thanks, Beth. Me too. I paid off any debts my kids might have, bought William a house near his condominium, and Amber an investment property. They will receive much more after the sale. Funds were set up for the education of future grandchildren, and I paid off the loans for the education of Ecom's children. The picture in my mind resembled one of those markers they set up at telethons. A little red line creeping upward as new installments came in and progressed toward the goal. For me, it was the opposite. I needed to get rid of every dollar so Molly wouldn't get anything. It consumed me and kept me moving forward. I visualized my marker. It started at the top and I slowly spent it down, down, down. The money was stored in her account, utilities and other household expenses were paid, and she had no reason to suspect that when I was gone, the money would disappear too. Having answered hundreds of letters telling people that I was dying, she should have been aware. Or maybe she didn't care. Maybe she was still having fun with her first love. I doubt it, but it was possible. I could have investigated and found out exactly what she was doing, but imagining her pain was far more interesting than finding out the reality of the situation. By the time 60 days had passed, the accelerated sale of the company had taken place. I gave everyone large bonuses and included a stipulation in the purchase agreement that they would keep their jobs for 24 months. They kept everything running while I was effectively the absentee owner. As we approached the 3-month mark, Beth moved in with me. I sought palliative care and refused any options that might extend my life a few more months at the cost of losing what meaningful time I had left while I was still me. From time to time, Beth would state that she needed to bring her grandnephews over to babysit. We both knew she was lying. She could see me light up when they showed up at the apartment. The first time they arrived, Ethan brought a toy dump truck. He and I sat on the floor and played for hours. I mostly watched, remembering when William was a kid, but I would put things in the dump truck when I was told to do so. Ethan was a very feisty child, but also very kind. His aunt let him have 3 cookies and a glass of milk every afternoon. She clearly loved the boys to bits. Ethan didn't eat his until I had 3 cookies too, and his brother had 2. He got 1 less because he was little. It seemed reasonable to me. The next week, he told me with great enthusiasm about the addition to his family. They got a dog they named Captain Thor, because the boys couldn't decide who their favorite superhero was. That's what Ethan claimed, anyway. Personally, I thought he just liked the name Captain Thor. It had an undeniable pathos to it. A few days later, I called Amber. "Hey, honey, I want you to think about this and not just answer right away. Have you ever thought about getting a dog? Maybe in 3 months or so?" "Daddy, what did you do?" "His name is Sparky. I was told his name should be Iron Hulk, but I like Sparky better. He's from a purebred litter and is the smartest dog you'll ever meet. He won't be any trouble, and I'll make sure you eat dog food for the rest of your life." She sighed. "Daddy, what kind of thoroughbred is that?" "Okay, he's a purebred. I bought him at Paws for Life on Pueblo Avenue. I'll send you a video. You'll love him." "If you love him, I'm sure I will. You just—" I heard her cry softly. Then she pulled herself together. "A dog is great, Daddy. Maybe tomorrow after work I'll take my lunch and go meet Iron Sparky Hulk. That would be great. You two will be best friends." "Okay, Dad, I love you. Never mind, I'll see you tomorrow." I filmed Sparky on my phone, making him sit up and roll over. I sent the video and a few pictures to Amber and Ecom. He thought getting a dog was a great idea. Honestly, Beth was okay with it too, although she cleaned up after him and took him out for walks. Wherever we tucked him in for the night, I would wake up to find Sparky half lying on the pillow next to me and watching, waiting for me to open my eyes. As wonderful as it was, immediately after the first incident, I rushed to Amazon in search of dog treats that help with halitosis. And make no mistake, Amber immediately fell in love with Sparky. I was almost afraid she would try to drag him home with her that night. As time went on, the situation became more and more complicated. I was sad and hurt and scared, but at the same time I felt a strange peace. Eckham played a huge role in this. He joined me when I went to talk to the priest. I half expected my friend to strike up a conversation with the priest about forgiveness, but he didn't. The sign of a true friend is to be there for you when you need it most. Eckham was there for me day in and day out. He was probably the most decent person I had ever met, and when I prayed, which was more and more often lately, I often thanked God for having Eckham in my life. Country-style music was not to my taste. I could admire the skills of my nephew and grandniece Beth, but the Poplin family jug band would never be something I enjoyed listening to. On the other hand, Shannon Poplin's classical playing was amazing. Beth and I went to several of her concerts. and I would close my eyes and just immerse myself in the music. There was no anger at Molly, no fear of the afterlife, no awe at the growing pain. There was just ecstatic music that lifted and carried me from the first to the last note. Shannon and her father performed mostly at benefit concerts as a juggling group. When they performed for an organization other than a charity, they asked for an honorarium, and the recipient was always the Greater Pueblo Wish Fulfillment Foundation. I asked Beth if she could invite Shannon and her brothers the next time the boys came to visit. Beth kept the boys busy while I talked to the 15-year-old girl. I guess it's no secret that I don't intend to stay here. I really admire what you and your father are doing. Your Aunt Beth is always talking about your performances at nursing homes, children's hospitals, the VFW, and other places. Do you plan to continue doing that for the foreseeable future? She paused briefly before answering. Yes, Mr. Cordell, I'm not sure we'll ever stop. I hope not. Smiling, I continued. You can call me Gordon. I know I look like shit, but in my head I don't feel like an old man. I'm not big on formalities. I'd like to make a donation to Make-A-Wish if you'd be willing to play at my funeral and maybe a wake or memorial service. Shannon, you have a gift. That doesn't diminish your hard work. I'm sure you've spent countless hours honing your skills, but I shook my head. I don't know how to put it into words. When I've been to your concerts, I stop worrying. I'm no longer scared, and the music just... Everything bad disappears for a while. You have no idea how much that means to me. She was oddly shy for someone performing in front of thousands of people. Shannon didn't say anything back, so I continued. I'll give them $150,000 as an honorarium. Will that work? It sure worked for me. I'd help kids in need and reduce the amount of money that could end up in Molly's hands. Shannon stared at me and then just cried. I felt awful. Should I give her a hug? Should I pat her back? Should I bring her tissues? I was sure that somewhere in the world there was a guy in his 50s who knew how to handle a crying 15-year-old girl. I'm not that guy. Screw it. I was dying. I had the right to take the cheap and easy route. Beth? I handed the suitcases to her aunt and played with the boys while Shannon cleaned herself up. When I left the room, Sparky was lying on the couch trying to lick her face. Shannon hugged me while her dad picked up his kids. Beth sat across from me on the couch. That was really nice of you. I'm not talking about the money, although that wasn't unreasonable either. Shannon hears compliments about her game all the time, but I think they're already flying in one ear and out the other. However, to hear what her game really means to you really touched her. She understood the importance of what you asked her to do. Ethan and Shannon often speak to veterans. She's an empathetic young woman. Well, probably a young woman. Playing for the grieving is not something she enjoys, but she gets it. She really understands. Shannon was very touched. You're a good man, Gordon. I felt uncomfortable with the praise. I always had been. Well, a good one. Thank you, not important. Mentally, I watched this revered fundraising figure continue to decline. I had set up a college tuition fund for Shannon and her brothers and an annuity for Beth, which she would begin receiving the 1st of January after my death. But no matter how much I spent, the sale of the company was causing that amount to increase. I had to figure out how to make sure the kids got it instead of Molly. I could practically hear the disappointment in Ekam's voice, even though the voice was in my head. Well, imaginary Ekam, get over it. I was going to leave her penniless. For years, she only cared about material goods. Let's see how well she does without them. Maybe back-cracking Frost could keep her in the style to which she was accustomed. After consulting with friends who knew a lot about money, I devised an insanely convoluted plan. I hired law firms in London, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Each firm was responsible for making sure that when I died, the cargo would go to my children. Each firm handled a specific load, and none of them started less than 5 years after my death. They received gold coins, artwork, and stamp collections. They could sell whatever they wanted and whenever they wanted. Did I lose a significant amount of capital in the process? Yes. But didn't I care? No. If my plan worked, they'd be rich for life. If it had partially worked, they'd be comfortable. If Molly found a way to foil my plans and they didn't work, I'd come back to haunt her. Ghosts, Molly. Was it worth having fun with an ex-boyfriend to become a ghost? Most of the friends Molly and I had as a couple had dumped her. She managed to convince the few that remained to call and ask for a meeting. It was expected that she would agree to any terms I set. She was distraught, wouldn't eat, wouldn't leave the house, and I didn't care. To hell with her. They were more compassionate than I was and seemed genuinely worried that she was at risk of hurting herself. I told them that if I could control the parameters, I'd give her half an hour. After buying a new pay-as-you-go phone at Walmart, I texted her a time and place. We were to meet at the cemetery bench where I was going to be buried. She immediately texted back agreeing and thanking me. It was a cold, rainy day, and it made me happy to think of her sitting there in the gray expanse, surrounded by reminders of death and grief. I never reached her. In the evening, I sent her a text. I'm so sorry, I was taken to the hospital. There's a lot of blood in my urine. The cancer may have spread to my kidneys. Should I try again at the end of the week? She answered quickly. Sure, whatever's convenient for you. I'm sorry to hear that. Let me know when and where. A few days later, I arranged to meet at the playground where we had often taken the kids decades earlier. 2 hours after I was supposed to be there, I sent another text. Fell asleep in the car. I don't think I can drive. I can call an Uber. Are you still there? No, I'm home. I can come back. How long will the ride take? Maybe I'll just sleep. I don't feel so good. Is Friday possible? Yeah, Friday's good. Let me know when, where. The location was the same, but the Italian restaurant where I proposed to her was now an Indian restaurant. I made an appointment for lunch. An hour after I was supposed to be there, I sent a text. I'm sorry. I've been abducted by aliens. I am still under investigation. Would next Monday be okay? She hasn't responded. The original estimate of my truncated life expectancy was just an estimate. If it was accurate, I had less than 90 days left. No one was more amused than me that, even without chemotherapy, I was still losing my hair. Beth said something about nutrients and medication. Never mind. I stopped being vain a long time ago. I lost a lot of weight and never seemed to have an appetite. There was a good period when I reached my ideal weight for the first time in years, but I quickly fell below that mark and struggled to stabilize the loss. My daughter started bringing me marijuana. Brownies, gummies, joints, and anything else she could think of would show up in my apartment. It helped with my appetite and dulled the pain. Sleeping 14 hours a night didn't fit into my plans to maximize the time I had left, but I had no choice. I dreamed about Molly constantly. Memories would get jumbled and Christmas and Disney would merge into one, or both kids' birthdays would be celebrated together. My wife was always there, always by my side. I could feel her body as she snuggled against me, watching William gleefully open a gift, or Amber, sitting mesmerized in front of the television watching The Incredibles for the millionth time. The faint whisper of Molly's perfume reached me as I slowly woke up and came out of my reverie. And the first thing I saw was a pair of warm brown eyes looking at me with unquestioning love as I bathed in hot, stinky dog breath. I had $1,733,845.6 left. It was hard not to dwell on the end of my life, but when I was able to be objective, it became clear that I had been blessed for a very long time. My parents, although they were taken too soon, loved me. They inherited money and a thriving business and then took it to the next level. I inherited even more money and took the company to the next level. We always had enough of everything. Enough food, enough comforts, enough love, and enough of everything else that provided us with an idyllic life. But there were times when we wanted more. More time, more money, and maybe even more children might have made our lives a little richer, but it would be unfair to say that we ever really suffered. The end was near, and I spent my final years as a wealthy man with wonderful friends and 2 children whom I adored. In summarizing my life, Molly was on the wrong side of the ledger, but I would be ungrateful if I didn't take everything I had into consideration. After talking to the right people in government, I purchased a huge house near Woking Sticks Manor. It had been on the market for several years and eventually became a foreclosure. The owners began renovating the house and turning it into housing for students at nearby Colorado State University, but they ran out of money. I paid to have the renovations completed as quickly as possible. Monitoring the progress of the work and scheduling necessary appointments took up all of my time. When we were 2 months away from completion, William started taking time off every Monday or Friday and flew in for 3-day weekends. He helped us tremendously when we were interviewing candidates for a caregiver position at Dr. Ecom Gruel's Veterans Home. We found someone who was perfect for the position. Fred Schlott was himself a veteran and a widower. An energetic man of 52, he had a background in social work and was dedicated to his fellow veterans. I paid his salary 4 years in advance and put it into a trust that William and Amber managed. House expenses had to continue, and I shamelessly reached out to old friends and colleagues, coaxing them to lend their support. The homelessness crisis has always bothered me, and the fact that veterans were so disproportionately affected was a black mark on the soul of our country. It took the contractors 4 weeks, but I was still around when they finished the job. Mobility was a problem, as was electricity, but I toured the house and stayed for the party. The Poplin family jug band was playing, and I pretended to enjoy the music. All was well until we got ready to leave. We needed the publicity in the local media to get the attention that would bring support in the future and to let everyone know what was going on. As I got up from my wheelchair to get into the car, I saw Molly watching us from across the street. She looked just awful. Letting the car take my puny weight, I leaned against it and stared at her. Neither of us said a word, and after a minute or two I got in the car and asked Beth to drive me home. I couldn't escape the thought of my silent wife looking at me, tears streaming down her face. My doctors had a backup job in Vegas where they could play the odds if the need arose. Their predictions hit exactly on target. We were 2 weeks away from the 6-month prognosis, and I felt like I was close to the end. Amber was living in the guest room, and William had taken a vacation and was sleeping on the couch. Ethan and his brother sent videos but never stopped by again. I heard violin playing from my room and was pretty sure Shannon was playing in the apartment, but it could have been dreams or medication. Iron Sparky Hulk couldn't fit in the wheelchair with me and whimpered until I was moved to the couch. He leaned on the edge and put his head in my lap. After I put my hand on his head, he would burrow headfirst into the blankets I now used all the time and stay there for hours. Staying awake for long periods of time was nearly impossible, and it was hard to concentrate, but I wasn't a stupid person. I noticed Amber's behavior and watched as Beth would take Sparky out for a walk and then come back in, only to have him want to go outside again an hour later as if the previous walk was only 100 yards away. Coincidentally, the distance from the door to the parking lot was about 100 yards. My sister and my daughter would often look out the window and talk to each other so I couldn't hear. This happened at least 3 times a day as the end approached, and it got on my nerves. William never participated in their entertainment, so I waited until he went to get groceries before talking to Amber and Benedict Beth Arnold. If she agrees to do what I say and leaves as soon as we're done, you can let her in for a few minutes. The look of shock on their faces made me wish I'd had the strength to laugh. Neither of them would make a good poker player. You're both as elusive as vegetarian activists at a barbecue. Go after her, but make sure she understands the limitations. Amber, she headed for the door but stopped and looked back at me. I'm depending on you. If she doesn't do what I ask her to do, I need you to walk her to the door. Right now, I don't have the strength to do it myself. I need your help. If you think you can't, I understand, but this stops right here and now. No, I'll make sure she understands. I'll make sure she understands that's more than she deserves. Amber returned about 5 minutes later, alone. She's outside the door trying to stop crying and, I don't know, Dad, she's in a really bad place. I'm not saying you don't have the right, but try not to be too cruel, okay? There was a light knock on the door, and then it slowly swung open. She wouldn't have liked that description, but Molly looked shabby. She had lost as much weight as I had. Her hair looked disheveled and unwashed, and her clothes were hanging off her. Hi, Molly. Long time no see. Gore? She stopped and coughed. Gordon? I'm sure Amber has already told you, but I'm going to lay down some ground rules. If you don't agree to them, Amber will escort you out and the Iron Hulk will tear you apart. He looked up at me and his tail started thumping against the edge of the couch when I said his name. Damn kids and their treats. Your name is Sparky. His name is Iron Hulk? What's wrong with Iron Hulk? It's a good name for a loyal dog, as opposed to a disloyal bitch. Gordon, I stopped her. Wait, let's establish ground rules. I don't want to hear how sorry you are. I don't want to hear why. I don't want to hear anything about your affair or your first and I assume last love. If you ever mention Frost, how bad you feel, any regrets, it's over. Understand? He wasn't. What's the matter with you? What did I just say? It was a mistake. Get out, Molly. No, I'm sorry. I won't say a word. I'm sorry. Turning back to the wall, I sighed, stroked Sparky and continued. Not much matters anymore, Molly. Most of what mattered is useless now. I don't need confirmation or denial, but I'm guessing that some part of who you were before you turned into a selfish bitch still exists, and that part wants forgiveness. I can't offer it right now. If it helps, I'll give it a try. I really will in this life or the next. I paused again. My anger and desire overpowered my fatigue, and I felt a migraine coming on. If you want to be worthy of forgiveness, do your best for your children. I don't care how often they reject you, hurt you, or push you away. Deal with it. I'm not just talking about your cheating. You've been a shitty wife and mother for years. Remember what you were like when they were little? Be like that when you're a grandmother. I won't be there, Molly. You'll have to be there for both of us. She was crying, and I was close to doing the same. I started to feel nauseous. Looking her over from head to toe, I was amazed at how much she had aged in such a short time. Okay, we're done here. You can go back to the vigil or whatever the hell it is you do. Turning around, she went to the door. Opening it, she looked at me again. I love you, Gordon. You'll never know how sorry I am. If it's any consolation, know that even if you find a way to forgive me, I can't forgive myself. She walked out the door, and that was the last time I saw my wife. I was strangely pleased. We tend to think of ourselves in the present tense, but my death allowed me to see my life in its entirety. It had been a good life, and even the last 6 months had been good. Akam sat in the corner and prayed. Amber and William stood beside the bed, my daughter holding my hand. Sparky's iron hulk lay next to me. My breathing was shallow and intermittent, but I felt no pain. I said a final prayer for my friends and family. Smiling, I heard the sounds of a violin and a whispering voice as I took my last breath. I wasn't sure who it was, but I think it was Amber. I couldn't think of better last words. I love you. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and watch for the next video.